The world has been wrong, completely wrong about the United States for years, and the truth has only just been exposed by one of the most demanding groups of people on the planet. What could possibly make 18 Russian billionaires, oil and tech magnates, men who wield enough power to shake markets, and who carry deeply rooted prejudices, bow their heads and admit they were mistaken just 48 hours after landing in New York? It wasn't nuclear weapons. It wasn't the skyscrapers. And it certainly wasn't the glamour of Wall Street. What shattered their pride were things so small, so unexpected, that no one could have predicted it. A speck of dust they couldn't find. A lost wallet, lying untouched in the middle of the night. And a quiet, understated civility the media has never truly told the world about. This story isn't just a trip. It's a slap in the face to every outdated belief we've been conditioned to hold about the land of the stars and stripes. Buckle up, because what you're about to read may change the way you see America forever. So, who are these men? They aren't your typical luxury tourists. They are a delegation of 18 billionaires from Moscow. Among them are energy tycoons, who control the flow of oil and gas into Europe, banking magnates with enough wealth to purchase an island outright, and razor-sharp strategists who have never once been fooled by a financial report. They did not come to the U.S. for vacation. They are practical, suspicious, and fiercely proud of their nation. Before stepping onto their private jet, their minds had already been programmed with a solid ideological framework. To them, Western prosperity was nothing more than a shiny veneer hiding a decaying core. These men had traveled the world, experienced 7-star service in Dubai, the disciplined precision of Tokyo, and the old-world romance of Paris. Because of their status and life experience, their opinions carry enormous weight. They are not easily impressed, and it is nearly impossible to make them offer praise. Their arrival in America felt like the entrance of the strictest judges into an unannounced inspection. And they were convinced they were about to witness the collapse of a worn-out American dream. New York? Nothing more than a giant trash heap covered in gold. One billionaire scoffed as the plane began its descent. That was exactly what they believed. In the minds of these 18 powerful men, America existed as a chaotic, unsafe painting, a nation defined by division, filthy subway stations crawling with rats, and streets where crime lurked the moment night fell. I used to think the United States was a place where civilization was moving backward, the steel magnate quietly admitted to his assistant. They were convinced that Hanoi, or their own Moscow, had become far more modern and orderly than the aging infrastructure of the West. They braced themselves for airport delays, rude customs officers, and chaotic city traffic. They even requested an expanded security team out of fear for their safety. Their skepticism wasn't just in their words. It was in the way their hands tightened around the armrests as the plane touched down. They arrived with the mindset of conquerors ready to witness the downfall of a rival. They were prepared to be disappointed. They were ready to say, "See, I told you so." But they were wrong. The moment the aircraft door opened, the first gust of air that rushed in wasn't the smoggy, stifling air they had imagined. It was a stillness, an almost eerie cleanliness that blanketed the entire airport. As the billionaires stepped out, their familiar, sharp-eyed scrutiny activated like radar searching for flaws. They looked for a scrap of trash. They looked for a stain on the terminal floor. They looked for irritation on the faces of the staff. But what stared back at them were polished floors, reflecting soft LED lights, so spotless that, as one of them later exclaimed, "It felt like I couldn't find a single speck of dust here, even with a microscope." The sounds around them weren't barking commands or blaring speakers. They were soft footsteps on carpet. They were customs officers greeting them with, "Welcome to the United States," accompanied not by a forced corporate smile, but one filled with pride and professionalism. Immigration procedures moved so quickly that they found themselves outside the arrivals hall before fatigue even had time to settle in. No bureaucracy, no suspicious stares, just the sheer efficiency of a machine running flawlessly. And in that very first moment, a crack appeared in the hardened shell of their prejudice. Leaving the airport, a limousine carried them toward the heart of Manhattan. It was late. Perfect timing, according to their mental script, for America's dark side to emerge. They expected shadowy alleys, dangerous stairs, and police sirens, wailing nonstop. But New York greeted them with a dazzling, orderly symphony of lights. They decided to do something bold. Step out of the car and walk a few blocks in the center of the city. Night wind drifted through the skyscrapers with a chill, but what they felt inside was strangely warm. The streets were as bright as daytime. Convenience stores stayed open 24/7, not fortified with thick metal bars as they had imagined, but encased in clear glass, where clerks happily chatted with customers. They saw young women walking alone, headphones on, casually walking their dogs, without the slightest hint of fear or caution. They saw groups of teenagers sitting in parks, not to start trouble, but to play music and sing together. The sense of safety didn't come from police officers standing on every corner, though they did see some. It came from the atmosphere itself, from the quiet confidence of the people. The anxiety they had prepared so carefully back home never had the chance to be used. Instead, there was only astonishment. "Why does the media say this place is dangerous?" one of them murmured, the question slowly taking shape. The next day, determined to test reality in its rawest form, they decided to ride the subway known both as the Lifeline and the Scar of New York, in the stories they had heard. They descended underground, bracing for the stench and the pushing crowds. The rumble of trains echoed through the tunnels, metal clashing against metal in that unmistakable urban rhythm. But once again, the scene before them stopped them in their tracks. On the platform, there was no shoving, no frantic scrambling. Americans stood in line, a straight, patient line, waiting for passengers to exit before stepping inside. A level of discipline they believed only existed in Japan, now unfolding right in the heart of the freedom-loving West. But what impressed them most was the respectful silence. Everyone from suited executives to blue-collar workers kept a comfortable space for the person beside them. And then a small moment happened right in front of them. A young black man with full-sleeve tattoos, someone they would have stereotyped, instinctively sprang to his feet the moment an elderly woman stepped into the car. He smiled, gestured to the seat, and said, "Please, ma'am." No hesitation, no prompting. The gesture was as natural as breathing. The Russian billionaires glanced at each other. In their eyes, contempt had vanished, replaced entirely by confusion and humility. They realized that the civility here wasn't enforced by strict laws or rigid rules. It came from an internal sense of responsibility, woven into everyday life. The final knockout moment came from the way Americans delivered service, not with the submissive deference of someone serving the wealthy, but with equality and genuine respect. When they walked into a cafe, the barista asked how their morning was, as if greeting friends. When they asked someone on the street for directions, the stranger didn't simply point. He stopped walking, pulled out his phone, checked the map, and explained everything carefully. That warmth wasn't the calculated politeness of someone hoping for a tip. It was generosity pure and unmistakably American. The delegation moved from one surprise to another. New York wasn't cold like Moscow. It was vibrant, yet warm, modern, yet deeply human. Everything ran fast and powerfully, but still carried a subtle grace in the way people interacted. The distorted image of an uncultured, deteriorating America they had built in their minds was torn apart, replaced by a vivid, civilized, magnetic reality. But all of that, impressive as it was, still wasn't enough to break them completely. The moment of collapse arrived on the afternoon of their second day, during a walk near Central Park. One of the billionaires, lost in thought, dropped his thick wallet, stuffed not only with cash, but with elite black credit cards and crucial documents. He didn't notice at all and continued walking another 100 meters. Suddenly, A shout burst from behind them. "Sir! Sir!" They turned around, and the bodyguard stiffened instinctively. A 1-2-year-old boy, simply dressed and drenched in sweat, was sprinting toward them. He stopped, breathless, raising the wallet above his head. "You dropped this back there," he said, offering it with both hands. The billionaire froze. He grabbed it, checked inside. Everything was still there, down to the last cent. He pulled out a thick wad of cash to reward the boy. But the kid shook his head vigorously and flashed a gap-toothed smile. "No, sir. My mom says we're not allowed to take things that aren't ours. Have a great day." And with that, he darted back into the crowd, leaving 18 of the world's most powerful men standing speechless in the middle of New York City. In that instant, at the very moment the kid's small figure disappeared, they understood they had lost. They were defeated by the pure kindness of an American child. Their prejudices shattered completely. That night, the atmosphere in their private meeting room was unlike anything before. No sarcastic laughter, no arrogance, only the heavy silence of contemplation. One of them, the harshest critic of America, finally broke the stillness. "We were wrong about the United States. Profoundly wrong." The admission landed like a ton of bricks. They realized that the true modernity of a nation isn't measured by skyscraper height or missile speed. It lives in the consciousness of its people, in the cleanliness of its public spaces, in the security felt by every citizen, and in the honesty of a child on the street. 48 short hours accomplished what decades of propaganda could not. New York hadn't defended itself. It simply lived authentically, and that alone softened the hardest hearts. They arrived with contempt, but they left with reverence. They made a promise to each other, and to the city itself. They would return, not to scrutinize, but to learn, to study how a society could function with such trust, such self-discipline, such everyday decency. The story of these 18 Russian billionaires is more than a travel tale. It's a lesson in humility and the cost of prejudice. Sometimes we let rumors blind us, forgetting to experience the truth for ourselves. America, when seen without distortion, still holds extraordinary human values and inner strength. A great nation isn't defined by a lack of flaws, but by its ability to nurture honesty and kindness, even in the most ordinary moments. The world may not fully understand the United States yet, but the truth, much like the lights of New York City, always shines. And if you want to hear more untold stories, perspectives that might change how the world sees the land of the stars and stripes, follow and join me on the journey ahead.